I look back on, personally on my last 20, and I hope that my friends, my hero friends, would be proud of what I've done. This my standard is to go back to what we used to say. What would Terry do? Terry Hatton, Captain Terry Hatton was my best friend. And we used to have these little stones and things, and we had WWTD inscribed in them. And so I look back and I look at that and I say, would Terry be proud of me? And am I doing what he would have done if our positions had been reversed, right? So we promised never forget. I've lived that mantra, I hope, very well over the last 20 years. And now I've learned that history is like defined as after 20 years. After 20 years, something is history. So when I hear that and looking forward, I want the children, the kids, some of them are in their 20s now, I want them to hear what it was like for us who were there, and to never forget the names of the heroes, the firefighters and police officers and others who, through action, through bravery, through courage, fulfilled one of what the Bible calls one of the greatest acts of love, by laying down their own lives for someone they didn't know. And there were many examples of it on that morning. I'll mention two to you. Firefighter Chris Blackwell from Rescue 3 in the Bronx. I saw him in the North Tower, and we always greeted each other the same way. We came face to face. We came to attention. He always had the unlit stub of a cigar hanging out of the corner of his mouth. He's a caricature of a Bronx fireman. And we come to attention. He would reach over, take the cigar out of his mouth. We lean in, kiss on the lips, and come back to attention. And he put the cigar back in his mouth. And we did that for two reasons. I truly did love this man, like he was my own brother. But we also thought it was hilarious to freak out all the firemen, and we got a kick out of it, right? Because we had to be, sometimes you have to be lighthearted in some of these trying times, and we did that, And I told Chris, I love you, brother. He said to me, I know this is really dangerous. This is really bad. And for us to say that to each other is meaningful. But after he said, this is really dangerous, this is really bad, he turned around and he went in the stairwell and he went up. He knew it, but he still went in the stairwell and went up. He knew he was probably not coming back. And he didn't know any of those people that were trapped upstairs. He didn't know any of them. But he had taken an oath that he would lay down his life for someone he didn't know. The greatest act of love. And Chris demonstrated that in actions that morning. My best friend, Captain Terry Hatton, the captain of Rescue 1, whose nickname was Doogie Hatton Boy Captain because he had a boy face. I think he just started shaving when he was 35. And he was my best friend. He was 6'4". And I saw him in the lobby and I ran over to him and he put his arms out and I went right into him, right into his chest. And my head was kind of like on his shoulder and we squeezed each other tight. And he kissed me on the cheek. And he said, I love you, brother. I may never see you again. And what did Captain Terry Hatton and the men of Rescue 1 do After he said that to me, they went in the stairwell and they went up to save the lives of people they did not know. Again, an example of the greatest love you could ever show. And this happened over and over and over in both towers of the World Trade Center. Actions taken by 343 New York City firefighters, 37 Port Authority police officers, 23 NYPD police officers who fulfilled the oath they had taken that they would lay down their life for strangers. Beautiful. I was a New York City firefighter, but I was detailed into Mayor Giuliani's newly created Office of Emergency Management. So now I was wearing a tie, and we would respond to the scene of big disasters and emergencies and just kind of bring the weight of someone like Mayor Giuliani to the scene. And it just helps you get things done. It gets resources quicker, and it was very successful. Our office was 7 World Trade Center. So the first plane flew over the roof of our building and slammed into the north face of the North Tower. My job was to go into that tower and assist the incident commander with the weight of the mayor. We knew this was big and bad. We would call it the big one. When the second plane hit, the leadership got together and decided to send myself and Chief Donald Burns to the South Tower. So Assistant Chief Donald Burns, 41 years in the New York City Fire Department, one of the most respected chiefs in the fire department at that time. Irish fire chief, if you looked it up in the dictionary, Irish fire chief, it would be his mug with the red rosy cheeks and the lines of knowledge and wisdom and experience permanently etched into his face. And he was a very good friend of mine. And we ran from the North Tower to the South Tower together. And I said, Chief, what do you need me to do? He said, Timmy, there's not much you and I can do. I've ordered a 5th alarm. Do your best and be careful. And we had to wait because the first 350 firefighters were going to the North Tower. We had to wait for the next wave. So we had some time. A woman came over screaming to us that there were people trapped in an elevator, and Chief gave me the nod, like, go with her. He went to the command post. I went with her. There were people trapped in an elevator that had free fallen 70 floors, but the emergency brakes worked, so it didn't crash into the concrete pit. And you could see the top of the opening, you could see all the people's feet, but there wasn't enough space for them to get out. And they were screaming in pain and fright because of the 70-story free fall they had just taken, but also that elevator pit below them was on fire and they were getting burned. And what they needed was a real firefighter, not a mayor's office guy like me. They need a real fireman with equipment and gear. And in my frustration, I turned to my right and I hit a person, and I looked over, and it was firefighter Mike Lynch from Ladder 4, who I knew. And he put his hand on my shoulder and he squeezed my shoulder and he said, Timmy, I got it. Because he could see the look in my face. He could see those poor people were in very dire situation, but he was a real fireman. He had all his equipment, he had all his gear, he had a whole fire truck of equipment with him. And he knew what he had to do to save the lives of those people. I had to leave that scene because over our radios, we were told that there was a 3rd plane coming for us, confirmed by the FBI. So firefighter Michael Lynch stayed with those people. I went to the command post. a lot of stuff happened, but I wound up leaving the South Tower to go get some paramedics and bring them back into the South Tower because the lobby was full of injured civilians who had come down around and around and around and around 70, 80 floors, burned, bloody, and broken. And when they got to the door that said lobby on it and they opened the door, it was bright and light and dry, and there were firemen and police officers there. And so they just collapsed because they figured they were safe, but we knew they were not safe. So I left the South Tower to get the paramedics. I was bringing 3 paramedics, Captain Charlie Wells and myself and 2 other paramedics, back into the South Tower. We were about 20 feet from the door when it collapsed. So we were right on the sidewalk going back into it. Because we were outside, we heard the first piece of steel snap, and it was extremely loud. So loud that it echoed through the canyons of lower Manhattan, and so loud that it was very clear what was happening. We didn't have to look up. We knew the building was collapsing. We're trained as firefighters. You can never outrun a building collapse. It always catches you and kills you. You have to take cover immediately. So we ran right back into the Marriott Hotel, which was right next door. And the door we ran into was the Tall Ships restaurant. We got in there. I lost them. Tower 2 was collapsing on the Marriott Hotel, and the Marriott Hotel was collapsing on top of us. We're also trained as firefighters that the strongest part of a building is a vertical column. When we find people alive in building collapses, many times it's near a steel column. Everything that wasn't nailed down was blowing in my face. The noise was so loud, I compare it to sitting at the tarmac at JFK, surrounded by 747s full blast. The dust was so thick that it got in your eyes and your ears and your nose. You couldn't breathe. I was trying to stick my face down in my shirt to filter it. And I was crawling, trying to find a vertical column. To say I was scared is an understatement, but I was determined to live. Somehow, I think through his will with a capital H, I found a vertical steel column, and I wrapped my arms around it and I held on as tight as I could. The wind was trying to blow me out into the street as all the air was being pushed out of the building as it was collapsing. My legs were up in the air. My helmet blew off my head. It was later scientifically proven that that wind was 185 miles an hour as it was trying to blow me out into the street. And I just waited to get crushed. And I was a little angry that I wasn't able to hold my family one more time and tell them I love them. And I just waited to be crushed. And as fast as it started, it stopped. And I was alive. And I was able to get out. So I wasn't meaningfully injured. I was not pinned. And about 35 of us in that part of the Marriott Hotel lived. And we found our way out. I believe that God spared my life because he wanted me to be here 20 years later to tell the stories of the heroes, the story of the horrors, and to be a part of these memorials, these museums, these charities that all come into the mantra, never forget. We have the memorial at the Pentagon, we have the memorial in Shanksville, and we have the memorial and museum in New York City. And to be a part of the 9/11 trail that connects all 3 sites is is meaningfully never forget, right? And it's a different way to never forget it, and it's brilliant. And I'm really proud to be on the board of the 9/11 trail that connects these three beautiful memorials, because we're 20 years later. This is officially history. And through these four memorials, including the trail, we're going to be able to teach future generations of kids who are 20 years old now, 22 years old or younger, because it's really important that we tell this whole story, the whole thing. We have to tell the story of the evil. We have to tell the story of the goodness and the love. And we have to tell the story of the stories of the heroes of September 11th. And the trail, hopefully being signed into law, I hope this week or soon, this trail will be a place that we can go and bike, run, walk with a clear head and think about all these 9/11 stories and these 9/11 heroes, and kind of meditate on the mantra of never forget them.